Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast Reading the Author, a unique show where we read authors' mind and not their book. Meanwhile, I truly believe and pray that you and your families are completely safe and healthy as well. Guys, today we have Gurucharan Singh Gandhi sir with us, and he is the author of three books, followed by Kabir Incorporate, Echoes of Gasping Soul, and the final one is The Tattoo Trail. And by the way, today we are going to talk about Echoes of Gasping Soul. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on our show. I'm truly grateful कि आप हमारे शो पर आए.
Thank you very much, Gaurav. Pleasure is all mine.
So, sir, like as we have already said, ki we are talking about a specific book today. So, can you tell us about the premise of the book?
So, Gaurav, there are two parts. One is the plot of the book, and the other is the premise of the book. The plot of the book is very simple. It is based just when we had COVID in our lives in the March of 2020. And the plot is that five strangers are accidentally stuck in a hotel in Mumbai, and they are stuck for the next 1 month. These five strangers are as different from each other like chalk and cheese. Now, how do strangers deal with that close proximity when danger is lurking outside? And what happens to their friendship, struggles, fights, disagreements? And finally, how kind of they discover themselves as well as the manner in which they relate to each other. That's the plot.
Okay.
But the premise of the book is slightly deeper. The premise of the book is fundamentally all human beings are broken in some way or the other, either through experiences or through life events. And that brokenness in many ways prevents them from relating to other human beings. Now, when five broken human beings, broken in five different ways, come together, will they discover the beauty in that brokenness? Will they discover that there is much more to relate to, despite the fact that their fundamental differences are not insurmountable? That's the premise of the book. And finally, the premise of the book is, can we overcome our brokenness to create something beautiful? Or are we condemned to live under the shadows of that brokenness? So that's the premise of the book.
That seems quite interesting. In fact, the five characters you talked about seems to be definitely very interesting. So, after listening to this podcast, many people will just love to explore these books. So, for those new readers, can you share some more details about those five characters?
Yes, of course. I had great fun in writing those characters. They're, as I said, they are very different from each other. The first one is Sunil Paswan.
Okay.
Sunil Paswan is a hotel manager. He joined the hotel as a doorman, and from a doorman, he has grown up to become a manager. He comes from rural Bihar. He ran away from caste and class violence in his childhood. He has seen the worst of that side of life. And he may not be educated, but he's pretty wise. His points of views are based on life experiences. He has a take on things. He's not shy and hesitant in claiming his space amongst educated people.
Hmm.
Uh, and he's a fantastic human being who is charged to take care of the other four guests. Razia Sheikh is a Malayali Muslim lady who had
Yeah.
come to Bombay for some work. The world often pushes her to believe either she is a Malayali or she's a Muslim. She hates both these labels. She wants to be known as a woman first and all these labels later. She also doesn't believe that success is the only currency in life that must be pursued, and is wondering why wanting less is such a crime in the world of today. Kulwant Kaur is 62 years of age. She's come on a solo trip, belongs to classical, old world, North Indian kind of milieu. Uh, she has fulfilled all the roles that society has bestowed upon her, that of a wife, that of a mother, that of a woman. And now she is desperate to get out of all these roles that kind of have been burdened on her. And the question she's asking is, when will I be free really? And when will I really get to live my life on my terms
Hmm.
without the roles that I occupy? Sitam Pradhan is a bored but competent bureaucrat. He belongs to the Northeast and works in Delhi. He has seen the worst of the biases that come for people belonging to that part of the world. Uh, but now he belongs to the steel frame of India, but he's extremely bored. He's searching for his purpose in life, beyond capability, beyond success. And finally, one of my favorite characters
Hmm.
is Manoj Joshi. Manoj Joshi is a classical corporate employee, he's an engineer, he's an MBA, very bright, very ambitious, very competent, suave, sophisticated. All that goes along with this archetype. However, he is also somebody who can't see beyond his nose, looks down upon people with lesser pedigree, lesser education, lesser
Okay.
sophistication,
Hmm.
uh, and he's stuck with people who he thinks are inferior to him. Is very snooty, very arrogant. Now, these are five very distinct characters dealing with their own demons of the past, and they are stuck in that hotel, not knowing when will the lockdown get over, not knowing when will they be able to go back to their lives. And let's see how it goes from there. That's the
Completely amazing, sir.
situation in that hotel.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All five of them are seems to be very interesting. And I'm, just thinking that they all stuck in the same situation. So how they must be dealing with them. My next question to this podcast is, sir, like, there's a chapter name as guilty is a manufactured emotion, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So when it comes to talking about this particular statement, like because it is kind of a statement, so don't you think you are being quite controversial in this because that's a quite a bold and according to me, it's quite a what you can say a bold, but not so very much with filled with. I'm not getting that exact word. The statement that
I get
contains,
it.
huh,
I get it. I get it.
huh,
Guilt is a manufactured emotion.
emotion, yeah.
Can be a very provocative sentence, but
Hmm.
on a funny
Huh,
side, I can say,
provocating. Yeah.
what's the
Yeah.
point of,
Hmm.
yeah. On the funny side, what's the point of being a writer if I can't provoke once in a while? But the intention is not to provoke.
Okay.
Uh, Guilt as a subject has always fascinated me. I believe that a lot of human beings find themselves burdened by guilt of one kind or guilt of another kind. What fascinates me is that, like most other natural emotions, like joy, happiness, satisfaction, peace, which human beings or sentient creatures are born with, they don't have to be taught. A child knows when he or she is happy. A child knows when he or she is hungry. A child knows when he or she is unhappy. But they don't have to be taught.
Hmm.
However, guilt is almost taught. Uh, the normative way in which the world works, or what is right, what is wrong, or what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, is something that society teaches. The funny thing is that what is right and what is wrong is also very fluid. Now, I'm not, of course, talking about extreme cases like killing is bad. I get it.
Hmm.
Some things are bad universally. They were bad 5,000 years ago and unacceptable, and they perhaps are as bad today and will be as bad tomorrow. However, some things are fluid. A lot was unacceptable 200 years back. It's pretty okay today. A lot was not acceptable 200 years back, but uh, and vice versa.
Hmm.
So I believe that uh, human beings are burdened by uh, teaching them to feel guilty under some circumstances. And it's a huge burden. I mean, guilt can corrode your soul. It takes away a lot from your happiness. It takes away a lot from
Agree.
your recognition that there is enough to be happy about and there is no need to be guilty about something that has happened, even if it is bad. It prevents you from moving forward. I just wanted to analyze that, but if in the process, Gaurav, it provokes, good for me.
Definitely, sir. So, sir, like, there are parts of the book that are quite heavy, even depressing. For example, there is a chapter called, I have written the name of the chapter. The chapter is The Stories of Our End, right? And the
Yeah.
another one is What is Your Burden? Is this a book
Hmm.
that talks only about the dark side of our human mind? Because, the name of the chapters quite represent or quite inclined towards those sides, what I personally feel. So, is this a kind of that book?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean,
Hmm.
finally, readers who will pick up the book by the end of it will realize that the purpose of the book is actually uplifting. It is actually to say, hey, do not be burdened by the circumstances in which you live
Hmm.
or the circumstances which have happened in your life. You can still find redemption at the end of it. I won't say depressive and heavy, but I would say contemplative. The purpose of those two chapters is to encourage and trigger a slightly deeper contemplation on subjects that sometimes we tend to brush under the carpet.
Yeah.
For instance, Stories of Our End is a topic that philosophers of yore have explored of why do we exist? Where
Hmm.
are we coming from? Where are we going? Where is
Hmm.
this life headed? What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life? Those are existential questions that everybody who has a little thinking mind and a feeling mind would like to explore. And I have also explored it to the best, of my ability. At the end, I'm trying to figure out a very simple question, Gaurav,
Hmm.
that when I die or
Okay.
when it is time for me to die, will I have a hole in my heart, a gap in my heart, or will I be very happy that it's fine? It was a life well lived. I pursued happiness the way I could. I
As I
chose
wanted
to
to.
remain happy even under strange
Differences. Hmm.
circumstances.
Hmm.
Or will I live my life with a deep sense of regret uh, and incompleteness? And clearly, nobody wants to be in that situation. So, the purpose of writing that chapter, Stories of Our End, is just that when my end will come, how will I deal with it? Similarly, what is your burden is not in a negative sense, but it is
Hmm.
in the sense of saying, what is it that God has gifted us or me with something unique that I can no longer ignore it, but allow it to blossom, allow it to chisel, allow it to evolve, and do something about it so that that burden that destiny has given me, I fulfill. It's a debt I would like to repay. So, contrary to your question, the book is not heavy,
Hmm.
contemplative for sure. It
Okay.
definitely is attempting to force you to think.
Okay. So my next question to you, sir, is like, what's your favorite season?
I know where this question is
Huh.
coming from.
Because
Uh,
you have
in
glorified the rains such a in such a massive way. And when it comes to talking about the other season, like we have summer, we have winters. Don't you think you have been a little partial when it comes to this season thing as well?
Partial is not a word I would like to use, but
Hmm.
yes, I have definitely stuck my neck out and claimed that my favorite season is rains.
Okay.
And people who like summers and winters will not like me saying it, but I have my reasons.
Hmm.
And here is my reason. Rains for me indicate abundance. Rains are givers, they don't ask anything. Uh, they allow growth, they allow
Yeah.
vegetation to grow, life to grow. What would be earth without
Agree.
rains? So
Agree.
rains are like givers.
Hmm.
They are like our grandparents who take too little, ask too little. They are perpetually large hearted,
Bilkul.
and they are constantly giving. uh, Summers and winters, at least the extreme summers and extreme winters, are oppressive to my
Hmm.
mind. They are takers.
Hmm.
They take something from us, they rob us from our energy,
Oh.
they do not allow life to
Ah.
grow as easily. I mean, extreme deserts and extreme arid
Winter. Hmm.
wintry areas, they hardly grow anything. Growth happens in areas where there are rainfall. So
True.
human beings must be and should be a lot like rains. They must be givers. They must
Hmm.
allow life to blossom around them. They must encourage life to grow around them. And that's why perhaps, at least in that chapter, I've said I like rains more. I have nothing against people who like summers and
But sir,
winters.
no, I have been personally in conversation with more than 250 authors as of now. Like we have completed more than 250 episodes. In every episode, I find something which is for me. Like when it comes to this episode, this particular theme, the way you have made me understood the difference between the rains, summer and winters is something I'm gonna take personally from this episode. And this completely new perspective is something just people must understand. When it comes to you can just from a very small thing as well, you can learn a lot of things, like the way you made me understand about this, the rain giving thing and the summer and winters are amazing, sir. That's true.
Hopefully, your readers will also find something there.
Definitely, sir. So what I personally feel that there is a theme of displacement or a longing for home in this book. So basically, what
Mm.
was going on in your mind, like while writing all these things?
Gaurav, the book was being written as we were dealing with the first wave of COVID.
Okay.
And we as society were discovering that many things that we understood about life are no longer true. Uh, what does it mean to be safe? What does it mean to be um, with people and depend on the structures that are available to us, let's say hospitals? I mean, all of that was being questioned.
Hmm.
So, in many ways, I was tracking what was happening in the world, and it has flown into some of the chapters. So, this particular chapter of displacement, I think it is called A Walk Away from Home, got triggered when I heard news items that hundreds and thousands of people who are working in the cities are traveling back to their homes and there are no transport available. People
Mm-hmm.
are bicycling hundreds and thousands
Okay.
of kilometers.
Yeah.
People are walking
Walking.
with their families and all of that. And I, and that perturbed me. That disturbed me quite a bit, and it threw up some very fundamental questions about what home is. In many ways, all of us are migrants, if not today, then 20 years back and or 40
Oh.
years back. Um, and the question that I asked myself is, when in good times we search for prosperity and we come to cities, but when it is a life threatening situation, our instinct is to go back to home, whatever that home is. Does it mean that only in good times we should be away from it, and in the moment calamity strikes and insecurity strikes, we will go back to
Back
the
to them.
comfort of
Hmm.
what is home? Is it not unfair to what home is? What about those people who are there, who are looking
Ah,
at you enjoying city life, making money, but the moment you are suffering
you go back there.
uncertainty, you are going back. So, aren't you in many ways very, very opportunistic? Then the other question that I wondered was, is it any more my home if I have been away from it from 30 years? Just as I have evolved, the place has also evolved.
Hmm.
So, will I recognize the place as I go back? Will I recognize the values it upholds now, both physically as well as emotionally? Will the place recognize me anymore?
Ah.
Uh, and those were the questions on my mind when I wrote this particular chapter. What is home? Finally, what is home?
So, sir, like there are many sections in this book uh, which deals with the section I can say about love, right? The subject of love,
Hmm.
basically. But there is an undying tone which talks about its transient nature. So, what
Hmm.
is your take? Like, why is this particular take on the book? Because both are
Hmm.
completely
I must
different.
smile. I must smile before I answer that question
Uh,
because the subject of love has been opined upon or commented upon for centuries.
Hmm.
And first of all, I'm not an expert on this subject.
Okay.
Uh, I'm assuming there is nobody who can claim that he or she is an expert.
True.
But it is a subject very fascinating in nature. And let me explain to you what about love fascinates me so much. At one end, I believe it is raw energy, it is raw power.
Hmm.
It has the capacity to change things, capacity to create, capacity to give, capacity to sacrifice, capacity to heal, capacity to make the world such a beautiful place
Ah,
as if nothing else matters.
capacity to evolve.
Penury doesn't matter. The capacity to evolve. People do crazy things beyond their capabilities
True.
when they are in love. Such a magical force. And finally, there is no end to your being happy if you have a feeling that you are in love or somebody
Ah,
loves you or you love somebody. So, such a generating force. And yet, it is equally true that it's a tornado. It disrupts life, and when it goes away, it leaves behind a huge debris. More often than not, people are actually dealing with its consequences, and those consequences are unfortunately not as much positive as the way I described. People are nursing heartbreaks, unexpressed love, unrequited love. They're dealing with what this experience has left them as and left them with, hugely gaping holes in their hearts, uh, a gap in their happiness, their inability to uh, deal with the consequences of what it has left you behind with. I wonder how come two such contradictory forces can
hmm.
exist together.
Together, yeah.
And that's my exploration. It is true that there is a huge transientness to love. Love dies, becomes feeble, and with time it creates its own havoc. But it's also beautiful. So that's the that's the intention, to deal with
Complete
this
mix.
polarity.
Hmm.
Can it create and can it destroy? Can it hurt and can it heal? Can it give and can it take? And it does all of that.
Hmm.
So the world has opined upon it. And I thought, what is the worth of a writer if I can't opine on that's such a beautiful subject?
Okay. Okay. So when it comes to talking about a specific chapter, can you talk about this chapter name as Resplendence in Impurities?
Yeah, resplendence in impurities.
Hmm.
It's triggered by a little bit of geology that I picked up when I was visiting some museum, I think in
Okay.
Orissa.
Okay.
Um, and the curator of that museum told me something very beautiful.
Hmm.
It says that all stones that are precious and with colors, the color comes from impurities. So emerald is
Yeah.
an emerald because there is a impurity, if I recollect, titanium in it. That gives
Okay.
it the purple color, or whatever color it is.
Hmm. Hmm.
A ruby is a ruby because I think there is iron as an impurity in it, and so on and so forth. And I was absolutely flabbergasted,
Hmm.
or absolutely fascinated when I heard that. What it told me was that the preciousness of the stone is not coming from its purity.
Ah, it's coming from
The
impurity.
preciousness of the stone is coming from its impurity. Now, when it comes to human beings, we are an exact opposite. We are in this perpetual race to correct people,
Ah,
change people, make them feel,
perfect.
better
Yeah.
or perfect.
Ah,
I think this is crazy. I think we must allow human beings just as they are, human beings with their imperfections, their warts, their blemishes, their anxieties, their insecurities, their hurts. They are what they are as a bundle of their experiences. Should they evolve? Yes, they should evolve. Should they confront um, their mind and the games the mind plays? Yes, sure. But that is their internal process. Nobody gives the right to Gaurav or Guru to fast forward this process of evolution to anybody. And if when that doesn't happen, be judgmental about it. Can we recognize and celebrate those impurities in human beings the way we celebrate them in stones?
So my favorite chapter, what I personally felt was Sab Maya Hai, right? I guess the
Mm,
name is correct. Sab
mm,
Maya Hai. Haan, Sab Maya Hai.
mm,
Okay.
mm,
So can
mm,
you talk a bit about that as well? Because I find it really interesting and I must, assume that my listeners also will find it interesting because in the end, it's actually Sab Maya Hai.
mm. Yeah, we have heard some Maya Hai in a very philosophical uh, tonality all
Hmm.
our lives. Um, Look, I have, like everybody else, I'm trying to figure out the meaning of life, the meaning of everything. Sab Maya Hai is because some questions perplex me or some phenomena perplexes me. For example, how come good people do bad things and bad people do good things?
Hmm.
How come love heals and love hurts? How come there is so much of randomness in the world? Nobody knows what's the cause, what's the effect. You are in the right place in the right time
Ah,
with right people, not because there is any talent in you, but randomness has sent you there. You're walking down the road and a bus hits you, randomness. Um, how come some blessings are not blessings, they end up looking like curse? And some curses are not curses, they end up
looking like a blessing.
being blessings.
Yeah.
Uh, what do you mean by good times and bad times? What
Ah,
is good and what is bad? Sometimes we find strangeness in what is absolutely normal and absolutely normalcy in what is very, very strange. Sometimes something is, we know it is wrong, but it feels so right.
true.
And some things feel so right, but we know it is wrong. Now, these are polarities, contradictions, confusions, you call it whatever you want to call it, that
Hmm.
I I tried to reconcile in that chapter called, you know what, at the end, if it is too much of confusion, let me run away by saying some Maya hai. Very difficult to know the true nature of life and true
Hmm.
nature of things. But I enjoyed writing that chapter, I must say.
Hmm. That's definitely an interesting one, sir. And I must recommend all the listeners to just don't skip the whole book, as but especially focus on this chapter, Sab Maya. You will definitely relate to it. So, sir, my next question to you of this podcast is: the characters discover themselves through the book, the plot, and all, like, but they end up being doing something very much bigger. Like they just go beyond the book thing. So, what's your message when it comes to this?
Mm. Well, that's an important one. Remember, I told you by the end of the book, it's actually an uplifting book.
Hmm.
So, first 20 days or 25 days, these five characters are afraid, fearful. They are wondering how long will they be stuck in the hotel. By the end of 20 days, they realize that all their concerns are actually petty.
Hmm.
There are ordinary people outside in the world who are doing incredible work, for
Hmm.
example, doctors, nurses, etc. And they discover that their concerns and their anxieties and their preoccupations are so small, so petty, and that it is possible within our lifetimes to do things which are bigger, which go beyond our own concerns, which go beyond what will benefit us. And each one of those characters then discovers it and they do it. For example, one of them goes and helps tired nurses who have been on duty for weeks together. One of them goes and works with doctors, assisting them because they have been on duty for weeks together. One of them goes and takes the charge of comforting The patients who are coming in who don't know whether the loved one they have brought to the hospital will come out of it
Hmm.
alive
Hmm.
or not. Then there is somebody who is guiding, that mayhem that is caused in the hospital. At the end, they realize that it is possible to go beyond yourself and help others and draw meaning out of it. And by the end of kind of the book, they realize that they have discovered happiness by giving, happiness by helping, happiness by being useful to others, uh, and in the process uplift their own lives.
Okay, so probably my last question to of this podcast is, sir, is this book particularly based upon COVID thing only, or it is something beyond it?
Mm. Actually, quite the contrary. The settings of COVID is just for the drama to move forward.
Okay.
It is coincidental that it is based in and around the circumstances of COVID and its aftermath. The subject of the book is beyond just the impact of COVID. As I was telling you, that this book is about how do strangers relate to each other.
Hmm.
This book is about how do five different people are broken in five different ways. And while they are broken in five different ways, their angst is still the same. Their ache is still the same. Their pain is still the same. This book is about how pain, love, longing uh, are emotions which are universal in nature. And if you have gone through any of it yourself, your ability to relate to another human being with similar pain,
Hmm.
longing, brokenness is infinitely superior. This book is about what unites us is far greater than what divides us. This book is about overcoming, actually, before overcoming, recognizing that there is a lot about us which is small, which is petty, which is self serving, which is inward looking, and that it is possible for us to go beyond that pettiness, that smallness, and uplift ourselves and create some magic, create some meaning out of my life. This book, therefore, is about transcendence, going beyond. This book is about discovering yourself and your heart and your mind. This book is finally about chasing happiness
Hmm.
uh, through the way and means that suits you best. So, this book, therefore, is not about the place in which it is set up. This book is about universal themes uh, that afflicts all human beings, that all human beings go through, and that all human beings must find an answer to. This is my take on it.
Okay, so that's all for today, guys. I hope you must have enjoyed this lovely and inspiring conversation with Guru Charan sir. And if you do, then do follow our podcast, Reading the Author, available on all the leading podcast platforms. Don't forget to buy and read the book. You can just go on Amazon and search Gurucharan Singh Gandhi. You will get all the three books. Just buy them, read them, and share with your friends and family too. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on our show. It was my honor to be able to host you today.
Thank you very much, Gaurav. As I said, pleasure is absolutely mine.